Yellow guys. So I was in Melbourne. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time now. So I was there the last week of November and the first week of December. 2 weeks. I was only there for 2 weeks. But so in this video, what I'll tell you what I noticed in Melbourne as a Sydneysider, the things that I found interesting, that I found different, that I liked, that I didn't like as much, things like that. So yeah, let's start with. So I've got my notes here so that I don't forget, right? So let's start with the first thing. Okay, before I start, I mostly spent my time in the CBD area. I stayed in like CBD close to Queen Victoria Market, just like 3 minutes walk from Queen Victoria Market. It was so most of my time I spent in the CBD. I also went here and there a couple of days, stayed at my friends, and then went to Chadstone Shopping Mall, which is also one of the big, like probably the biggest mall in the Southern Hemisphere or something like that. I read somewhere. At least in Australia, that's the biggest shopping mall. That and you know Brunswick and this and that, St Kilda and whatnot. But apart from that, most of the time I was in the CBD, going for long walks, just window shopping, just like browsing through the streets and shopping, watching movies, and shopping again, and mostly. So yeah, so here's a few things that I noticed in Melbourne that I I have not seen in Sydney, to be honest. The first thing is black. People wear black, almost like a uniform. In at least that's what I've noticed in the CBD. I'm not saying everyone, but um, decent majority of them they wear all black. Like I'm not. I was like really impressed with the Melburnians' sense of style, and I've, I've like it inspired me. I've been only buying black like ever since I came back from Melbourne, and I think I'm kind of obsessed with that look now. Like it's just a phase. I don't think I'll be as obsessive as the Melburnians, because I like colors way too much to be obsessed with just one color. You know what I mean? Black or a lack of color. Black is not even a color, they say, right? It's just lack of colors, right? But there's something about it that I want to experiment with. I'm I'm going to be taking all black a bit more seriously, at least for the next couple of years. That's going to be my new ADHD thing or whatever. I've been I've bought like 6 or 7 black outfits already. It's just 6th of January. I came back second week of December. But there's something about that, and Melburnians make it look really good too. It doesn't. It's not just like black shirt, black pants. No, no, it's not like that. They're like layers and different shades of black and layers upon layers of black. And I believe the Melburnian weather also helps. This kind of black on black or all black kind of outfits. But I went in November, December, so it was like not that cold, right? It was like very moderate. I was lucky. I heard that's probably the best time to go to Melbourne. Yeah, I'm in love with the Melburnians' sense of style. I'm not sure if they are really stylish or they just buy the whole look. You know what I mean? That I know that there are websites that, like for example ASOS, and I also came across a couple of other websites where they sell the whole look, right? The whole, I don't know, they Australians are also a bit inspired by the Japanese all black kind of thing, the samurai or whatever. So I don't know. So I can't say that they are being really stylish, but whatever they do, they though it's just black, it they look stylish. I like it. It's good. And ever since I came back from Melbourne, I've been noticing a lot of Sydney ciders also wear black on black. Only that I never paid attention to it, and it's but not as much as Melburnians though, right? But I've stayed close to the CBD as well for a few years, so I'm when I say Melbourne CBD, and versus Sydney CBD, I'm saying Melbourne CBD is there's a lot more all black going on in the Melbourne CBD. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, oh, I'm not even sure if this is like a politically correct thing to say, because but I've seen newspapers use this word. So in Australia we have this thing called bogans. I believe it's like the redneck equivalent of Australia. I didn't see that many bogans in Melbourne. In Sydney, you come across a lot of bogans. I just yeah, I'm not even comfortable talking about this topic, but I just want to point out that yeah, that there's a lot less bogans in Melbourne, I would say. That's the second thing. Third is free tram. So CBD, there's a certain section of the CBD in the Melbourne where they operate free tram services. So that's a really good thing. You just hop in, hop out. That's it. You don't even need to tap. And when it goes out of that limit, they make an announcement. So that was I think we need something like that in Sydney. I know they're trying to come up with some kind of entertainment precinct or whatever, but that's still in the planning phase, I believe. I'm not sure when that will be implemented. Well, let's wait and see. But free trams, yeah, is a cool thing. And okay, cafes. This is something again I really liked. The Melbourne cafes, at least the ones in the CBD, my God, they have a lot more options. So I always used to wonder, like whenever they say, Melbourne coffee is good, Melbourne coffee is good, Melbourne coffee is much better than Sydney. But Sydney was awarded the best coffee in the world, just last year, 2025, right? It Toby's estate in Chippendale. I used to live right next to it, like 2 minutes from that coffee shop. So I never got the hype. Like, what are they talking about? Like this, what is this best coffee? Best coffee? What is this coffee snobbery going on with the Melbourne people? And whoever visit Melbourne, they say, "Oh, the coffee is so." I was like, but I finally understood what it's about. The cafes in Melbourne have a lot more options, and they are a lot more creative in their options. So in Sydney, I've been to a lot of cafes in Sydney, right? I've seen I usually almost always see like 4 or 5 options. The typical ones, the usual suspects, right? Cappuccino, latte, long black, short black, I don't know, mocha, flat white, and mostly this, right? These days you see matcha and that kind of stuff. Like these are the options that you normally see. But in Melbourne, not in Melbourne. Melbourne has a lot more options. I I remember trying some Mont Blanc coffee, Dubai chocolate coffee, and New Orleans cold brew coffee. I don't know. They have a lot more creative options there. It's just the availability of the options. I believe it makes Melbourne a better coffee place. I'm saying that like really honestly, being a Sydney sider. I've never seen these many coffee options in Sydney cafes. You might get to like at Toby's estate even they have different blends, right? And then you get to pick the blend for your coffee. But even then you get to have only seven of these. Even if you pick your own, like there would be like 10 different blends you can pick from. But then at the end of the day, you only get to drink one of these seven options, right? But Melburnians, they are on another level when it comes to coffee options, and that I love. And not only that, even the breakfast options, right? See, in my opinion, food anybody can make food, but breakfast, if a city is taking breakfast seriously, then that city is that I rate that as one of the best in food. These guys, the Melbournians, I had something called like what was that, like chili scrambled eggs. I've never seen this option in Sydney. And each cafe makes its own version of chili scrambled eggs. Like it was delicious. And what was that, crepes? The, oh my god, the kind of crepes that I had in Melbourne. There, I think I only had once, but a lot more indulgent. The Melbourne food scene is. I would say. Yeah, I really love the food options in Melbourne. Okay, the next one. So this is the- the- when it comes to ethnic mix, right? This is what I noticed. Again, I'm talking with respect to the CBD, Melbourne CBD versus Sydney CBD. In Sydney CBD, you have a lot more Asians. It's almost like Asians are like the second biggest majority, I would say. Like Asians, you'll see Asians everywhere, and then Asian shops everywhere, right? I'm talking about Sydney CBD. Melbourne CBD, I didn't see as many Asians though. There are Asians, but not as much as Sydney. Sydney has a lot of Asians. Yeah, that's something that I noticed. But man, I saw an Asian girl in Melbourne wearing all black goth kind of a look. Wow, I was so turned on that day. Okay, that apart. And the second part of the ethnicity mix is, so in Sydney, you won't find like people mixing as much. I felt because if you see a bunch of Asians, they mostly, if you see like a group of Asians, you can hardly find a non-Asian in that group. And if you see a bunch of Arabs, you'll hardly see a non-Arab in that group. I'm just talking about people watching, right, in Sydney CBD. And let's say a bunch of whites, you hardly see a non-white in that group. So people are like people hang out in with their own ethnic groups in Sydney. I've noticed that. But in Melbourne, I found a bit more mix. So I would see a bunch of Asians with an Indian girl, a bunch of Indians with a white person. So I don't know if it's just the few times that I observed that that's the case, or in general Melbourne is they it's a lot more mix going on in Melbourne. I felt like they they mingle much better than the Sydney siders do. That's what I thought, but I could be wrong. If you're from Melbourne and watching it, do let me know how it is. And Yeah, this one, this is this was a disappointment. There were no kizomba parties happening. Being a Sydney side, I'm I'm used to having at least once a week kind of a kizomba party. This is a very common thing in Sydney. You'll find more than like a lot of events happening here and there, but I didn't find that many in Melbourne. That was like a bit of a disappointment for a city of for such a big cosmopolitan city. I mean, yeah, I was disappointed. I even pinged one of my friends, like asking her if there's any Kizomba half, if party is happening, and she said she's like a Kizomba instructor. She said maybe it wasn't happening that week. I don't know, but yeah, that would have been cool. Like if I got to dance Kizomba, I would have like I would have liked it. And another thing when it comes to partying, like not many Latinas in Melbourne, I believe.
It is.
Not many Latin clubs either.
It is.
I went once to this reggaeton club. I forgot the name of the club. So it was in no, southern Melbourne, South Melbourne somewhere. It was a Latin club, like a weekly kind of a thing. And the space was small and it was like crowded and whatnot. Uh, when it comes to Latin clubs, I think Sydney is the place in Australia because you go to La Cueva. Oh my God, there's such a big space and you hardly find place to even stand. It gets that crowded in the weekends. And it doesn't just happen in the weekends, it happens on Thursdays as well. So yeah, Sydney Latin scene is much better. That's what I think. Melbourne needs to catch up on the Latin thing. What else? I think that's about it. Yeah, in general, I think like Melbourne is more like as everybody says, it's more like a cultured city. Not only that, I I felt like Melbourne CBD is much more happening than Sydney CBD. Not as a whole. I'm not saying the whole city was a city. I'm just saying at least when it comes to the CBD, I genuinely think that Melbourne CBD is a lot more happening than Sydney CBD. And Melbourne is also kind of like a city guy's city, I would say. If you know what I mean, like it's difficult to explain. Like if you're always been a city guy, if you're born and brought up in a city, I think you would like Melbourne more than Sydney because there's a lot of city guy kind of activities that you can do in Melbourne, like the libraries and film festivals. And I'm not saying we don't have that in Sydney, but a lot more options when it comes to food, like when it comes to coffee. So I think that's what a city guy typically expects in a city, because you want pretty much the whole world in the city, right? Like you want options. I've grown up in cities most of my life, and I always like feel like, oh, I need to be able to do this. Like why am I not? Why? It's like I want to watch all today suddenly I would like to watch an Iranian film. Tomorrow suddenly I would like to watch an Armenian film, and all of a sudden I would like to eat like an Ethiopian food or whatever. It's like the availability of options is what makes it a city guy city, isn't it? And I think in that sense, Melbourne definitely is a city guy city compared to Sydney, even compared to Sydney. I wouldn't honestly I wouldn't mind moving to Melbourne if yeah, but only thing that I would think twice about is the weather, because I have never been in Melbourne during the winter. I only went in November, December, so I don't know how the city feels like, how the vibe of the city in winter. I need to visit maybe this winter I'll have a look and then see. But honestly, Melbourne, I wouldn't mind moving. All right, I'll see you guys in another video. Bye bye.